Hey guys, welcome to another video. My name is Ian, I'm Ian the Reader, and happy Thanksgiving to all you US citizens out there. And if you're out there celebrating Thanksgiving and you're not from the US, then good for you, because it means good food and good times, right? So yes, it is Thanksgiving Day as of me posting this video, and I'm super excited to talk to you guys today because I'm doing the Thanksgiving book tag created by the awesome Madison Goodyear. I'll go ahead and link her channel and her original tag down below. I really enjoyed watching this video a few days ago, and so I'm super excited to bring you guys my take on her Thanksgiving book tag. I did also just want to say thank you guys so much for your patience with me this month. I have been very inactive on here because I've been participating in NaNoWriMo, but as of yesterday, I just passed 70,000 words on my work in progress, so it has been a very successful month, I will say that. I'm hoping to finish my first draft of my first ever completed thing that is longer than a short story this month, so I'm very, very excited about that, and I appreciate you guys waiting as I am a little bit more inactive on here. It's been a lot of fun writing, very exhausting, but I'm glad to be making a video and talking to you guys about books again. Without further ado though, let's go ahead and jump into the prompts. I have my handy dandy laptop here to read them off because I can't remember all of them and I didn't write them down on cards because that's a lot of work. Prompt number 1 is mashed potatoes, the crowd pleaser. So how I'm interpreting this is not necessarily a book that I have seen a ton of people read and review. Not that this book isn't popular, because it definitely is. It's hugely popular, but I think that I want to interpret it as a book that I think a lot, if not most people would like it would please the crowd. And so the book that I'm going with actually is a book that I haven't ever talked about on this channel, I don't believe, but it is a book that was one of my favorite reads of 2019, I believe. And that book is a classic. It is The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. So this is one of my favorite classic books, and the reason that I think it's a crowd pleaser is for a variety of different reasons. This book has exceptionally beautiful language. It is so well written. It is one of those books that as you're reading it, you're just like blown away by the prose. It is stunning. But on top of that, it is very readable. It's not like hard to read beautiful prose, because a lot of times with classics, people kind of associate classics with being difficult to read or being very, very wordy. But this just reads like very simple poetry, but it's just exquisite. It really is. And so I think that it would please people who want something that is a little bit more hefty in its literary merit in that way. But on top of that, I think that it is very approachable and very readable. So I think people who necessarily aren't comfortable with classics would be very at ease in reading this. So I do recommend it in that way if you're new to classics, or if you read a lot of classics. The Picture of Dorian Gray is fantastic. And then on top of that, it does balance like literary fiction with horror fiction as well, but it's not like, oh my gosh, terrifying, I'm going to not be able to sleep tonight horror fiction. It's just unsettling. And so I think it appeals to the people who like horror, but the people who don't necessarily read a lot of horror, I think that it will still appeal to them as well. And on top of that, it's just a fantastic book. It really is. I enjoyed the plot, I enjoyed the writing. The characters were kind of despicable a lot of the time, but in a very enjoyable way. This is just a fantastic read. If you've never read this novel, or if you want to read more classics, this is a great place to start. It is definitely a mashed potato, crowd-pleasing kind of book. Prompt number 2 is a must-read classic, and believe it or not, I did not pick The Picture of Dorian Gray for this. I picked my favorite book of all time, because this is a book that I think is not as easy as The Picture of Dorian Gray, and maybe in that way it's not necessarily for everyone, but this is my favorite book of all time. And I don't read a ton of classics. It's one of my goals to read more classics. I primarily read science fiction and fantasy, and mystery and thrillers, and contemporary fiction, but this book is my favorite book of all time, like I said, and I read a lot of books. And so the book that I'm talking about is East of Eden by John Steinbeck. I adore this book wholeheartedly. It is, in my opinion, perfect. And I don't say that about a lot of books, very, very few actually. But this is a book that I think checks every single box that I have. It is beautifully written. It is hefty in its themes, but in a way that it's not like overly ambitious and like you just spend all this time like trying to decipher it. It's very relatable, and the themes are very human, and that's something that I love, is that it's so down to earth, and it's a struggle that I think a lot of people can relate to, the heavy themes of this book. And on top of that, it has some of my favorite characters of all time. And you see that I have tabbed this book, right? I don't tab books. I've never really done that, but I read this book, and as I was reading it, there were just so many passages that took my breath away. There aren't a lot of books that do that either, but this is one of them. I could literally flip to like any page and read you a beautiful passage or an amazing quote that I would love to just reflect on and digest and adore, because this is just, it's a perfect book. It really is. The plot is incredible. The characters are some of the best I've ever read. I will never stop thinking about and loving this book. It's my favorite of all time, and that is why I consider it to be a must-read classic. It's definitely, like I said, a little bit harder to read because it's quite long, and Steinbeck does like to dig into the prose and the description of his settings, which is very wonderful in my opinion. It's very immersive, but he doesn't spend too much time on that. I think it's just, especially getting into it at first, it's a little bit more challenging because he really sets the scene and there are a lot of characters. It focuses primarily on two families, the Trasks and the Hamiltons, and just kind of getting into it takes a minute, but once you're like 50 pages in, you're absolutely hooked, and it is multi-generational and amazing, beautiful, and I should cut myself off because I'm just gonna spend 20 minutes talking about how much I love East of Eden. Read this book. Okay, prompt number 3 is gravy. Can't get enough of it. So I think Madison said that she like puts gravy on like everything. I'm not that type of person. I am a gravy on like some things, like, okay, turkey, yes, and like a little bit on the mashed potatoes, but that's it. That being said, I do have a book series that I can't get enough of, and if you've been around on my channel for any length of time, you probably already know this, but I'm obsessed with the Dresden Files by Jim Butcher. This is a series that I could reread over and over and over again. It is one of my favorite series, if not my favorite fantasy series. But the thing that I love about this series is that there are so many moving parts to it that you don't really notice are moving parts until you get deeper into the series. And so in that way, it's perfect for rereads. It's perfect for discussing with other people. And there are 17 books. So it's definitely, and that's not including the 2 short story collections. So it is quite long, but I can't get enough of it. I've read the whole series once through, and I am on book 7 in my first ever reread of it. I'm loving it. I love the series so much, I cannot get enough, and I love talking about it with people. I've gotten both of my brothers to read it, my dad to read it, my brother's wife to read it, and my aunt to read it, and my wife is currently reading it. So I'm trying to get everybody to read the series, and I'm slowly doing it. I love it. Next prompt is for Cranberries, a palate cleanser. So I don't necessarily call Cranberries a palate cleanser personally. I kind of avoid the cranberries, to be honest. I don't know if that's sacrilege or not, but my latest addiction as far as palate cleansers go, especially in the month of November because I've been so focused on writing, this is really all that I can get into right now. Those are short story collections. So maybe this is an unorthodox answer because of that, because I don't have a specific book, but I really love short story collections, especially for like reading slumps, or if you don't have a lot of time, or if you're just wanting to not necessarily get invested in a huge long story. Short stories have been my go-to this year, especially in the second half of the year, in November especially. My current short story collection read is Interpreter of Maladies by Jhumpa Lahiri. I am loving this collection so much. The first story in this, like, I've read it multiple times, and every time it just shakes me so much, and I love it. It's beautifully written, it's amazing, the culture, the characters, it's just stunning. So I'm very much enjoying this, and I am very much enjoying short story collections in general. I actually just bought a lot of them from Book Outlet, so I will be doing a book haul of those at some point. Question number 5 is green bean casserole. Looks gross, tastes great. If this prompt were up to me, it would be looks gross, tastes gross, because I'm not into green bean casserole, like, at all. So do I like Thanksgiving food? I do. I like turkey, macaroni and cheese, like cornbread, rolls, stuffing, all that stuff, but the green bean casserole ain't it. But anyway, I'm gonna stick with the original prompt, and that is looks gross, tastes great. And for this, I actually have 2 answers because I think I'm really choosing to answer it in 2 different ways. My first selection for this is Lonesome Dove by Larry McMurtry. Now, the reason I'm giving 2 answers is because this cover is not bad. It's not terrible. It doesn't look gross on its own, but I think the problem is that readers these days just don't really like to read Westerns very often, and so I think most readers would take a look at this and just immediately be like, nah, that's not for me. But this book is incredible. This is in my top 3 novels of all time. It is mind-blowingly good, especially for the fact that it's literally just about some men going on a cattle drive, and that's the plot. Like, I can't really tell you any more than that because there's not really more to tell, but it's really just about them and the character development, the character arcs, the relationships. All of it is just stunning. Like, some of the best character work ever. I'm a sucker for character work, which is why East of Eden and Lonesome Dove are in my top books of all time. But again, I think that this book doesn't look bad on its own, but people will look at it and not be interested. So this is your sign. If you've been wondering about Lonesome Dove because you've heard good things, but it just doesn't look like it's going to be something you're interested in. I don't read Westerns. But I read this and I loved it. But I did also want to give another answer for a cover that I really just don't like, but a book that I do. And for that, I've chosen Winger by Andrew Smith. This is not a good cover. Like, I guess it kind of fits thematically. This is our protagonist, and clearly he's having a rough time, which the main character does. But I don't like this cover. I don't like looking at it. But I love this book. This is one of the only young adult books that I reflect on, and I'm like, yeah, this is a favorite book of mine, because my tastes have changed a lot, but this book is absolutely incredible. Winger follows Ryan Dean West, who is, I believe, 14 years old at the start of this book, but he is a junior or senior in this prep school. He's skipped a bunch of grades, so he's the youngest one around. He's little, he plays rugby, and it's just about him going to school. And it is one of the most interesting narratives that I've ever read. It kind of reminds me of The Catcher in the Rye, if you've read that. Ryan Dean is kind of similar to that, but in a less obnoxious way, because a lot of people don't like the main character of The Catcher in the Rye. He's still very similar. He's very childish, and you get his just like stream of consciousness, but it is hilarious. Like, this book is so funny. It is also just like, I don't want to spoil it, but there are some things that happen in this book that I did not expect. I think about this book all the time. Highly recommend it, even though the cover sucks. It's great. Number, where are we? 6 is Stuffing, a comfort read. So for this one, I would have picked the Dresden Files, because I really love those and they're like comfort reads for me, but I already chose that. So instead, I'm going with Calvin and Hobbes. So a few months back, I picked up like 10 of these from my local Goodwill, and you guys, I'm just so excited to jump back into these. I have comfort read a handful of the volumes over the years. I used to love these when I was a kid, but they are just the best, most genius comics in the world. You've got Calvin, who's 6 years old, his stuffed tiger, Hobbes, who he brings to life in his imagination at the very least. And this is just like so brilliant. Like, it's funny, and it's surprisingly emotional at times, but Calvin's monologues and his thoughts are so beyond any 6-year-old ever. It's very existential. It's just brilliant. That's what it is. But this is a comfort read for me for sure. It's so heartwarming, so fun. I love these books so much. Prompt number 7 is Pies and Desserts, Guilty Pleasure. I'm not gonna go into this one too much, because I don't really think that there really are guilty pleasures. Like, read whatever you want, it's fine. I guess this though. So this is the Sookie Stackhouse True Blood series or whatever. I've only read the first book of these, but I randomly stumbled upon like the whole rest of the series practically. I think I'm missing like 2 books at a library book sale, and they were 6 for $1. So that's a crazy deal. So I bought like tons of these. I haven't read anything beyond the first book, but they are definitely like popcorn books. You know, they're not bad. They're fun. And I guess the covers are dreadful. Like, this is not bad, but there's some really, really bad ones. Example A. Yeah, so I guess in that regard, it's a guilty pleasure, but I wouldn't say that they're amazing. I think they're fun. So there you go. So prompt number 8 is Veggie Tray, Just for Looks. And so how Madison described this one is, like, when you go to a Thanksgiving dinner, there is probably a veggie tray there, but nobody goes to Thanksgiving saying like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited for the veggie tray. You just put it there to be like, yeah, we have vegetables, it's fine, but nobody's there for the vegetables, you guys. And so in that same sense, this is a book that you have on your bookshelves to look good because you feel like you have to, like to check the box or whatever, but you don't necessarily plan on reading it, or you don't love it, or something along those lines. So for this, I have selected Dune by Frank Herbert. So I am interested in reading this to an extent. I've tried before, and part of me wants to read it before, I think I even put it on my like 30 to read before 30. So I do plan on reading it, but I don't feel compelled to read it. And I'm not even necessarily sure that I'm going to love it, but I own it because I feel like you have to. To be honest, when they announced Dune Part 2, the movie, I may read it then, but part of me kind of just wants to go into the movie not knowing what's going to happen. So we'll see. Is that a sin? Maybe. Question number 9, or prompt number 9, is The Leftovers, Better on Reread. So this is a book that I don't necessarily know firsthand that it is better on a reread, but I definitely think it will be, and I have seen multiple reviews from people as they're rereading this book in this series that say it is better on a reread, and that is Malice by John Gwynne. So I just read this book back in October, I believe it's October, and to be honest with you, I liked it a lot. I gave it 4 stars, but I enjoyed The Shadow of the Gods, his other series, a lot more. And part of my problem with this is there are so many moving characters. I talked about this in my October book reading wrap up, but there's so many characters, so many perspectives, and the chapters are really, really short. And so you don't get a lot of time to like learn the characters and get used to them and understand them before it switches perspectives. I'm fine with a lot of perspectives in a book, but it has to be balanced with long enough chapters for you to know the characters, if that makes sense. And so it was kind of frustrating in that sense, and it took me a long time to get into it, which is why I kind of like softy and effed it 2 other times in the past few years. But I finally read it and I did enjoy it, but I think upon reread, especially after reading the whole series, I'm going to appreciate these characters more. I'm going to appreciate the setup a lot more, and it's just going to be a lot more enjoyable of experience overall, knowing the characters a lot better. So I definitely think that this will be better upon reread. Prompt number 10 is The Longwinded Uncle. So a book or series that went on too long. So I could go with a lot of different answers in this, and I thought about this one for quite a while, but ultimately I settled on The Rainwild Chronicles by Robin Hobbes. So Robin Hobbes is by definition like a long-winded author. She writes very long books. They're very detailed. They're slow burns, but it works. Like so often it works. You really get to spend time with the characters, get invested in the world. It's amazing. Except The Rainwild Chronicles. You guys, I do not really like these books. And I have like figured it out too, because there is a good story in The Rainwild Chronicles, but it is too long. It is too long-winded. There are too many pointless characters, pointless plot points, too much drama that just doesn't make sense. Robin Hobb published these as 4 books, but originally they were intended to be 2 very, very long books. Ultimately, I think that all 4 of them should have been trimmed to the point that they could be one significantly large book, and that was it. Because I think if you did pull out all the useless crap from that series, it would be really good, and it would serve as its own like standalone in the realm of the Elderling universe. But it was just too much. Like by halfway through book 2, I was just like, dear God, can we please just get on with it, because it was too much. So that is definitely The Longwinded Uncle for me. Prompt number 11 is family drama, plot twists and turns. So no surprise with this one, I am picking The Greenbone, this is upside down, The Greenbone Saga by Fonda Lee, holding up book 3, Jade Legacy. So this is the definition of family drama. Like it revolves around a generation of this clan who are Greenbone warriors. It's kind of like the mafia, but like in a fantasy setting, but like urban fantasy. So it's like they have technology and it's like regular cities and stuff like that, but with magic of a sort. But there are not only great moments of family drama in this, but that plot twists and turns, especially in book 1, but really throughout the whole series, there are some great twists, some huge turns that I did not see coming, and I absolutely loved the whole journey with this trilogy. Is fantastic. I feel like that's a really basic answer, but I highly recommend it. And lastly, we have holiday planning, anticipated read for 2023. So there are so many books that I'm very excited to read in 2023, but the one that is most presently on my mind is Gardens of the Moon by Stephen Erickson, the first book in Malazan, Book of the Fallen. So if you don't know, I am doing a channel buddy read with some amazing people, those being Jordan and Josh from Red Fury Books and Alex from Tall Guy Reads. I'm so excited to be reading this with them. We're gonna have live chats every month. We're reading one a month, at least to start, until they get like super crazy long. And that starts in January. And we're gonna be having like a live show where we bring on a Malazan expert to kind of walk us through the confusion, because these are supposed to be some of the most challenging books to get into as far as fantasy goes. But we're all so excited, and I am so pumped to be reading this with a great group of people. So I'll go ahead and leave a link to all of their channels down below. And you are more than welcome to join us for that read along. I'll also post the video link for our announcement of that video, where we talk about Malazan a lot and like what it's about. And Philip Chase, who is amazing as well, comes on and kind of like sells the series to us. So it's amazing. Check out the video down below and join us in January. I'm so excited to read this series in 2023. But that is all for this video, you guys. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much, Madison, for creating such a fun tag to celebrate Thanksgiving. I love this holiday so much. It is a wonderful time of food and family and friends, and just a wonderful time. It really is. I'm saying wonderful a lot, but that's just because it's the most wonderful time of the year. Thank you so much for watching. Stay safe and warm wherever you are, and happy reading. Bye.